Contend for the faith that was once for all delivered to the saints. In times of spiritual and moral chaos, it can be hard to discern truth from error and to apply it to all of life. God's word is not silent, and we don't have to be either. This is Once for All Delivered with Caleb Castro and Andrew Smith.
So, Caleb.
So, Andrew.
I have it on good authority that there is... Oh, my mic's clipping. I have it on good authority that my mic's clipping.
Oh. Who was that authority?
Well, I was gonna talk about the Pope. Yeah, the authority being the Pope, that there is too much frociagine.
Andrew, I don't speak Italian. What does that mean?
Well, I'm not sure I can say, or we will, like, possibly get banned or something. I don't know. It is apparently a slur against homosexual males. Apparently, its counterpart in English also starts with the letter F, and Oof. I think we'll let the listeners fill in from there.
Wow, why would the Pope say something like that?
So, this happened, actually. By the way, this is the OFAD Pride Month special. There is a rhyme or reason to this.
We are proud to bring this to you live from, not actually live, but from Rock Valley, Iowa, and
Hamel, South Dakota. Not that we even want the feds knowing where we are with the content of today, but
they already know.
We're not difficult to find.
No, I just need an excuse to say that we are proud.
So the background story on frociagine, which I'm probably saying wrong anyway, but this was before Pride Month started, before June started, so got started a little early by that Antichrist and man and lawlessness. And he did say there's too much frociagine in Roman Catholic seminaries. Basically, there's an epidemic of homosexuality among Catholic priests, or those who aspire to be Catholic priests and are in the Catholic seminaries. So
I wonder why.
Pope Francis, well, yeah. But so Pope Francis called this out, that there was too much of this, and then it prompted an outrage. And next thing we know, Pope Francis is having to apologize for calling out the frociagine, because it is Pope Francis after all. He can only be based in very, very small doses, and he always has to walk it back when he does, because he's the Antichrist and man of lawlessness.
That's right. So, yeah, and I think actually part of the reason in this, it wasn't in an interview, but I believe it was a discussion behind closed doors that ended up being partly recorded and released.
Oh, it wasn't an interview?
No, I believe it was a meeting behind closed doors with some of his closest, like, cardinals.
Okay.
That was what made it especially controversial, because he was caught on record.
Hot mic.
Yeah, and not his public persona. You had said that he usually does his, his interviews in Italian. He said that his Italian's not good, that he doesn't really like to use it, and that he even, he grew up in an Italian-speaking household. So, go figure.
Yeah, we have Pope Francis doing Pope things. Again, this was before Pride Month even started, so it's going to be a fun one when something like this goes before it. Speaking of goes before, I also refer to this month as Goes Before Destruction Month, because of Proverbs 16:18. Pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. So, good job, society, celebrating all the things that lead to destruction.
Well, on that, actually, here's a fun tidbit, and then perhaps we'll do a live analysis here. This is unscripted or anything. Andrew, if you will go, I know this is going to hurt a little, if you'll go onto Google.
Do I have to? I am on Google.
Okay, now...
I forget.
Now type in the search bar. Wait, what'd you forget?
Funny story. I actually... so I'm a Linux user, and I've basically rigged Google to not do Google things on the rare occasions I actually use it. but hold on, I got to work around here, I think.
Okay.
I've disabled Google's AI and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so I'm in Google.
Okay.
I'm on the search bar.
In the search bar, type Pride.
Okay.
No, sorry, type Pride Month. Even better.
Oh yeah, we got confetti and flags parading across the screen, and fun stuff.
Yes.
What you love to see it. Not actually though, related, because this is also a Google property. YouTube. They had it yesterday. I don't know if they have it today. No, it's gone today. But yesterday I posted it on my Twitter. They had, instead of the YouTube name and logo on their homepage, it looked like a couple of like overly made up eyes with rainbow colors, and you mouse over it, it would say like, explore the drag community.
Ooh.
If you'd have clicked that, it would take you to, it wants to show you a bunch of videos of drag performers.
Oh. So in one way, could we say that since last year, does it seem for like some of these big tech companies or some of these bigger companies, does it seem like they are being more assertive, more aggressive than last year?
Well, yes and no.
Mm-hmm.
I think Google has been a little more out front with it. One of the things about Google is they can kind of do whatever they want because they're so big and so many people use their stuff anyway that I don't think they're going to suffer. I did notice, for instance, like, I could be wrong, and if our listeners hear this and we're wrong, but like, I seem to remember last year Amazon had a bunch of stuff, and this year I don't think they did. So I think it kind of depends on where you are. In some places it's more overt, but in other places it's more muted. Like, I think this year the government is being much more overt, but then I think private industry is actually being a little more subdued and quiet.
Yeah, I think that's about right. With actual businesses, there seems to be a lot less overt or explicit endorsement overall. I'm sure that they are, a lot of businesses are still selling things or whatever. Also, yes, very geographically dependent. A lot of web pages are definitely more into it. Things that are, the amount of like Pride posts I've seen through like gaming industries, video, like blogs and all that kind of stuff. Seems like it's a little bit hot online. The gaming industry has always been gay.
Yeah, I mean, it's always been like probably one of the worst offenders in this regard.
That is true. There's a number of games that had come out in the past several years that have been strongly endorsing it. There is, I think, a general pushback that's getting louder too. At least in this past year. On one part, we have to remember how during Easter, that Biden had declared Easter National Transgender Day of Visibility.
Yeah.
Right, TDOV. So there's these enormous pandering. The enormous pandering from the government is definitely there, but the Republican Party has been getting pretty vocal about, anti-LGBTQ as well. But this tends to be, something more of a platform.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up the Easter thing, too, because really in a lot of ways, I mean, we have Pride Month, and this is the big one, but it's really morphed into a liturgical calendar, it seems, of its own. In fact, a couple weeks again before June even started, I was at your house, and I was there for the very important holiday of Idaho Bit, International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia, Interphobia, and Transphobia.
That's a lot of phobia.
Idaho Bit. And so, there was big, I think Biden did a rally and that kind of stuff on that day, and there's going to be others. All other kinds of the intersectionalities, and particularly LGBT ones, that have to be brought up. It's almost like they have to keep it on your radar every so often and remind you that this is a thing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, why not? It's the state religion, It's like you had put it. We're getting apparently some kind of liturgical calendar of woke, Yeah.
It clearly has the sanction of the government. I mean, I'm running here through all the the various tweets. I collected quite a few of these tweets of posts by agencies. So the National Weather Service
Oh, that was a good one. Yeah.
had a pride post.
That's right, because nothing should be more LGBTQ inclusive than the weather.
Actually, there might be one thing that should be, and that is the NSA.
Oh, okay. So I was going to bring this one up as well.
Oh,
Go for it.
I'm stealing your
No,
thunder.
go for it.
But the government spying on you needs to be properly observant of pride. I'm just running through government ones. We got a bunch of others, too. The Libertarian Party of New Hampshire, which, by the way, they have nominated as their presidential candidate a man named Chase Oliver, who is quite the flamboyant homosexual, it seems. In fact, the post by the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire, if you don't vote Chase Oliver this November, you ain't gay. So
That's
I
right.
guess act on that information accordingly.
Let us repeat, no neutrality. There is no neutrality.
U.S. Department of Education, you know, the ones that educate children. Big Rainbow Pride post. And actually the best one of all the government ones, the one that takes the cake, NASA
Wow.
had a Pride Month post.
Because space should be also gay. That's
Yes.
right. Space needs to be inclusive. That's why it's space.
We need to have more diverse and equitable and inclusive space.
they're just reaching out there now and just like we're gonna cover the whole universe. It's just ridiculous the sort of things that have to be painted on with this. It's almost as bad as, I mean, you remember how in the, if I could do a little, maybe, I don't know if it's controversial or agitating analogy, but you remember how in the 80s or 90s with pop evangelicalism, you would have anything that was in the Christian entertainment, Christian media industry was, anything produced was really tacky, right? You might have like Christian cringy hip hop songs or Christian versions of, what was it? Even now, Christian versions of of Pilates or yoga, right? What are those things called? Like Jesus poses, like, you know what I mean? Like they're kind of really cringy Christianese culture. It's almost like a secular version of it.
Yeah. It's like you go into a Christian bookstore and you'd see what was the logo of a popular corporation slapped on a t-shirt with the wording somehow changed to be a dubious reference to a Bible verse.
Yes.
Stuff like that, but only gay.
Yes, exactly. It's like the secular version of that. It's just, we know it's all marketing. It's marketing ploy. Did you have some additional references, Andrew?
Well, I mean, if we're walking through the tweets, so we've been through the government.
Yes.
But we have some others, too. Like I said, I think generally private industry's been a little more muted, but that doesn't mean it's been unaffected. One was a Facebook post by Westminster John Knox Press, which just think of the words I just used that came out of my mouth. Westminster John Knox now has a pro-Pride Month post. The picture is a kind of a worn leather Bible, and then the ribbon page marker coming out of it is a rainbow. It says, "Celebrate LGBTQIA plus pride and craft your reading list with WJK. Browse books that represent our friends, family, loved ones, and beyond in the LGBTQIA plus community." So you got to get all those letters in and then get the plus on just in case you don't. But yeah, just shows you how far Westminster John Knox Press has fallen. I believe they are, I don't know if they're officially affiliated with the PCUSA, but that's their history and their main base, and that's why they have the name they do, because they used to be representative of, you know, sound Presbyterianism, but now they've just completely collapsed.
Yeah. Well, they are official, by the way. It's yeah.
Okay, so they are an official. Speaking of the PCUSA, I do believe, I don't know if they've had their meeting yet. I don't think they have, but I believe there's an overture before the PCUSA General Assembly, basically to require clergy to affirm homosexuality. That it's not only enough to tolerate it. It's you have to support this if you want to minister in the PCUSA.
Yeah, it came out of the Pacific Northwest, if I recall. It's pretty natural coming from a charge, but yeah.
So, sorry, Reconquista bros, but it's not looking so good over there.
We'll have to do an episode on Reconquista eventually.
Yeah, we might. We've been kind of down that rabbit hole a little bit, and maybe we'll share some of those findings with you, our listeners. But more papists. So James Martin S. Gay, remember him from when we were talking about the Pope? It's S.J. He's a Jesuit, because why not? But he's that priest in New York who just couldn't wait when Fiducia Supplicans was issued by the Pope to do the photo op where he was giving a blessing to a couple of gay men. But he made a post. Can Catholics, it's an article that I'm not going to get into, but just the post on Twitter, it's a rainbow flag. Can Catholics celebrate Pride Month? Yes, because it's not about personal vanity, but human dignity. So
is it?
Yeah. Well, it's not, but it's funny though. I've seen a few other things like this too. Basically, pride is a sin. In fact, for the Catholics, it's one of the 7 deadly sins. So you would think that pride's not really something you want to be associating with. So you have people kind of tying themselves in knots to say, well, this isn't that kind of pride.
Pride is also any kind of obstinance in, not obeying the word of the Lord.
Yeah. I have Wicked the musical, which, musical theater has kind of always been that way. But moving on from that, NASCAR.
Ooh, that hurts.
NASCAR it's a bit of a fascinating case because NASCAR has historically been a sport associated with Southern rural conservatives. But over recent years, it's just become very progressive, very woke. There was a race hate hoax in NASCAR. There was a black driver some years back who claimed that somebody had hung a noose in the garage, and it was supposed to be this symbol of somebody wants to lynch me, and it turned into this whole big thing. And then it turned out it's just, no, that's the rope you use to close the garage door. It was always there, and it always was like that. And, there's been stuff like that and since then. And it seems now that anytime there's anything for NASCAR to virtue signal about, they do. Because NASCAR has become more popular, financially successful, and sought to expand its influence beyond its historic rural and conservative base, even if that just means stomping over the values of their historic base. And really, all of sports tends to go this way. Major League Baseball did another one, as well as several teams. The Carolina Panthers, they're already professional Sabbath breakers, but why not, be gay too? Lots of other sports teams. Oh, Caleb, the University of Iowa.
Ooh, yeah.
Thoughts about your flagship state university?
We reject all public institutions of education.
Okay, well.
So, not surprised.
Yeah, so they had one. I think that's all the ones I've got here, but, just... Oh, no, there was another one. This might actually be the worst of all of them. Sesame Street had a pride post.
Oh, boy.
It was the stacks of the fluffy fabric, that the Sesame Street Muppets were made out of, but in rainbow colors, and it was a pro-pride post from Sesame Street, which primarily targets children ages 2 to 5.
They have already been doing this kind of stuff for several years, though, as well. Like, they had they had affirmed several years ago that the characters, Bert and Ernie, who are usually seen and associated with one another, that they are, in fact, not just roommates, but a couple. So, yeah, that's been something for some time now, I think.
Yeah, but it's not getting better.
They haven't changed.
If by some chance you're out there and you still have your children watching Sesame Street, you best not.
Yes, that is correct. If we're turning into this, we might want to ask, how do we actually respond to these sort of things going on in culture? It seems like the tide is really high and against Christianity in particular. It seems that there's not much where we can really have a voice or push back. But I mean, is there? On a personal and individual level, what do we do? What should we do if we're to come across a homosexual or a transgendered individual in our community?
Well, first and foremost, and on that note, I mean, there's been so much bad advice given about this. I believe we've already talked at some point, for instance, about like the Alistair Begg controversy a few months back, so we don't really need to go there again. But really, at the end of the day, like, how would you handle anyone who is living in willful and unrepentant sin? You have to call them to repent. And it's not merely a repentance in terms of, you know, praying a prayer, forgive me, and then continue in your life. It's a repentance that involves a turning from that lifestyle and a rejection of it. This is basically verboten to say in our day because we have basically been socially conditioned to think that, oh, conversion therapy is bad and you're born this way and you're immutably this way until you decide out of the blue that you're just something else. But whatever you do, you can't actually renounce and leave this lifestyle behind. But really, I mean, that's what it is. It's what you got to do.
And I'm thinking of also in particular here, because it sounds in part that that's focused towards people that you know or have more interactions towards or something. But what about someone on the street now? If we were to walk by someone or be in the same place and space as someone who is a homosexual or trans identifying person, should we really consider basically bearing witness to them, evangelizing them?
I mean, I would say that it's a case where wisdom and prudence have to prevail, but if you have an opportunity to, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, one huge thing is for us to, as Christians, to maintain not normalizing it, not making it a normalized thing. Like, okay, this is just the way the wicked is. Well, yes, but in that same time, we don't want to be coinciding with it. You know, how would you feel if the government was? I mean, some would say this is perhaps apples and oranges. I would think not in terms of the Ten Commandments. But what if we were to be living side by side with, you know, convicted felons that have been released, convicted felons of murder who have been released into society?
I mean, in some places that seems to be happening.
Well, yeah. And it's, I mean, I guess, yes, people are still arguing that they should be given certain chances and being let, you know, walk around. But same thing, I think where we see there's other issues here in the first place. What do you do with like things like certain registered sex offenders that had served jail time and are released into society? The LGBT community are being elevated above murderers and thieves and, you know, and other sexual offenders.
Yeah, and it's fascinating that happens because one of the things about LGBT people that no one really seems to want to talk about, even though it's documented and proven and supported by data, disproportionately do engage in acts of sexual assault, sexual abuse, sexual predation, including but not limited to towards children. That's one of the worst things that you can say. There's a book, I've plugged it a few times on the show, but it's written by my fellow presbyter, Sean Mathis, is The Church Pro-Gay. He actually talks about this. He provides that data and those sort of things about this. Even just as like practical instruction to churches, what do you do if you have people like this coming to your churches, even if they are ostensibly repentant? And I'm not saying they can't be repentant. They most certainly can be and should be, and we'd hope and pray that they are. But it's also a case like, yeah, if you had a convicted pedophile who came into your church, sure, you'd welcome them. You could even let them become a member. You could even let them partake of the supper and things like that. But it's also like, you're not going to be alone with kids.
Right.
That's just a matter of wisdom and prudence. That's your burden to bear. We're not going to provide you an opportunity for stumbling, nor are we going to provide any others of our flock an opportunity to be in potential danger.
Right. This is a discussion, especially for perhaps to consider for smaller congregations, or we could even say congregations more on something of an average size, like where you and I minister, Andrew.
No, we're a small congregation.
Well, I know I'm including myself here with small and moderate size.
Yeah.
Oftentimes with smaller congregations, there's a feeling that there isn't a need to kind of go through background checks or any of these kind of things, right? And perhaps warranted in some elements. A lot of folks in these kind of small towns know each other. Whereas, though, for larger churches, there's a wisdom, and I mean very large churches especially, there's a wisdom in having some kind of training, some kind of mandatory background check and basic kind of certification for working with children, basically.
Yeah.
We had to do that in URCs in California, for helping out at VBS even.
Yeah.
When you have some 80 plus kids of a community running around, and I mean, not just at the church, but from the broader community that you are interacting with, and anyone can just volunteer. You want to think the best. You want to presume, but at the same time, you need safeguards.
Right. Yeah, I've had to do background checks for various things in the past, like working with youth and stuff, and I mean, I think that's a fine practice to employ. It's also, I think, a good practice, if possible, to never have situation, or as much as you can minimize situations in the church where people have to be alone with children. So if you have Sunday school classes or whatever, have at least 2 people present. If that's you have a teacher and an aide or multiple teachers or whatever, if you're able to do that, it's a good practice, because then you always have witnesses to anything that may or may not happen, because there can be false reports and false claims as well.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, it's in the very least, if you, for us, where we don't have, say, that many people where we can spare to have, a bunch of aides during catechism and such. One thing is it's multiple kids in the room.
Yeah.
You have to have multiple kids in the room but never a one-on-one. And if there's a one-on-one, do after class or something like that, right?
Yeah.
If you're getting to the point where sometimes a kid might have a question or whatever, and you're going into a one-on-one, you keep moving and walk them back to the main discussion area. Always get back to a public area. You don't sit around in maintaining a private atmosphere. I don't know. The main thing here is that it's do not even give the appearance of evil, right? Or even the possibility of someone taking something the wrong way.
Yeah. I mean, have open doors or doors with windows or something, so even just that there never really is a situation where such privacy could even exist. If somebody wants to be able to see what's going on in a room, they can at any time.
Thank you for listening to this episode. For the latest news and updates, visit our Substack at onceforalldelivered.com, where you can also support our work with a paid subscription. You can also follow us on social media at OFAD Podcast. If you like what you have heard, leave a 5-star review where you get your podcasts, and spread the word about the show. Once for All Delivered is hosted by Andrew Smith and Caleb Castro, and produced by Andrew and Heidi Smith. A special thank you to our founding members, Eric and Kathy Hepker. We hope you will join us again next time on Once for All Delivered.